All right, it's 3 o'clock. So hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Old Mutual Group. Building a culture of innovation in large enterprise organizations can be challenging, and it can be tough to get right. But the pandemic taught us that there's an urgency for organizations to be agile and have the right innovation processes in place to solve problems quickly. So we talk about all this in our recent Innovation at Scale white paper, which can be accessed in the chat. My colleague Sarah is going to drop it there. Now, some large established organizations have managed to build and sustain an effective culture of innovation and have succeeded in delivering innovation at scale. At Vasoku, we are proud to be working with one of those companies, Old Mutual Group, who are using the Vasoku platform to crowdsource ideas from their workforce, and who we've been working with for about 2 years now to innovate at scale. Today, I'm joined by Lara Sukhdeo, Strategy and Innovation Executive, Nomaswazi Ngwane, Human Capital Executive, and Thembisa Mapukata, General Manager, Alternative Channels, who are all working on Old Mutual's innovation program called Siyakhula. Now, in our webinar today, the team will talk about why harnessing the power of the internal crowd is so important. We're going to talk about Old Mutual's innovation journey, the introduction of the Innovation Lab and the Siyakhula program, why Old Mutual Mass Foundation Cluster arrived at making Siyakhula digital and the benefits of the program. And also we're going to look at the wider impact of the program and future plans. Now, before we start, I want to let you all know that you can ask any questions in the chat bar to the right, and we're going to aim to cover all those questions during the webinar. I hope we can get as many questions as possible to ensure that we get an interactive session. Now, Lara, Swazi, and Thembisa, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Thembisa, why don't you kick us off by telling us a bit more about Old Mutual Group?
Good afternoon, Shoning. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having us. Old Mutual is a Pan-African financial services company, which is operating across 13 African states. But we see on the chart, it's 14 countries and 13 of the 14 is within Africa. Its primary listing is in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Our line of business includes life and savings, PNCs, banking and lending, and asset management. We can see the numbers. It's a significant player in terms of the size. The one number I do want to lift out, though, is the people that we employ. And I think that is very important given the high unemployment rate, especially in South Africa. So we employ about 30,000 people, and about 20,000 of those people are employed in South Africa. So a significant employer in South Africa. To create focus, Old Mutual structure is segmented into different customer-facing business units. And the Mason Foundation, MFC for short, is one of the retail business units that focuses on the low to low and middle income customer markets. And customers in these segments, that is the MES and the foundation, are your typical public service workers, such as your teachers, your policemen, your nurses. In the private sector, these would be your junior to middle management workers. In the foundation market, which is the F in the MFC, the foundation market serves what we usually call the bottom of the pyramid. And these are largely informally employed people. To serve these customers, Shoning, MFC has employed a multi-channel strategy. We have about 4,000 tied advisors. And when we talk about tied advisors, we talk about salaried advisors. These are our own advisors as opposed to your independent brokers, etc. We have about 4,000 of these guys, our foot soldiers. And I do tend to get animated when I talk about them because they really are the gateway, not only to our customers, but they are the gateway to the communities that we serve. And to be relevant, we ensure we employ advisors from the community because they are known, they create credibility, they are loved, they've got affinity to the market. And that is actually very relevant to the culture of Mason Foundation Cluster. Besides being a high performance culture, we also have a very strong family and community orientation culture. But before I get deeper into the culture, I do want to hand over to Swazi to talk more about what that culture has done into the Siyakhula movement. Over to you, Swazi.
Thank you, Thembisa. And welcome to all of you on the call. I really appreciate, and I think we really appreciate having the time to share some of the work we've done with you, but also to get questions and share some of our insights. I think to start off, Thembisa started to talk about the organization and started to talk about our culture in MFC as a cluster. And before I position what Siyakhula is, I think I must give you just a taste of what are some of the words that describe our culture. Our culture is one, when people think MFC or talk MFC, is one that's very family oriented, very collaborative, inclusive, belonging, winning together, respect, and growth are just some of the constructs that come up when we start to talk about this culture. So a very close-knit community type of environment. And I think a platform like Wazoku has really, I think, set us apart and helped us get back on our track, at least where our strategy building is concerned. And you heard Thembisa refer to Siyakhula. So Siyakhula, yes, is a movement in itself. There's quite a culture around Siyakhula that links to what the cluster is about. If you think about the customers that we deliver to and the environments that we operate in, Siyakhula means we grow. And we say we grow together because in MFC we do a lot of what we do together. So Siyakhula is a challenge that we set out to our employees, which is integral to defining our strategy. It's around bringing together all the minds across ranges of disciplines and backgrounds to collaborate and put forward ideas to help build our strategy and formulate our strategy. So at the core of how we get to our strategy, and the size of our business is massive, is co-creation. And how we co-create is making sure we use one of our greatest assets, which is our people. So really, Siyakhula tries and every year tackles pressing business challenges through a series of workshops and information sessions that are held face-to-face. There's quite a bit of excitement around it, and really bringing across professionals across that have different backgrounds. So from our beloved tied advisors to your human capital administrators, to your marketing managers, to your strategists, your analysts, different minds come together and solve business problems and solve those problems together. And really the objective is to make sure we drive collaborative formulation of the MFC strategy, but also we cascade the strategy across the organization. It's important from any strategy perspective that we have buy-in from the people that will execute that strategy. So you wonder why the very bright colors for Siyakhula, surely green is enough because it signifies grow. But I think the colors, and just to explain that piece to you that you see in the tree, talks to how we go about the process of Siyakhula. And I'll get to where Wazoku really, I think, for us, broke us free due to COVID. So the green standing for ideation is really around generating strategy ideas for the business. The orange stands for evaluation and the participation that we have in the business. Pink talks to the implementation, and the blue talks to the results that we want to achieve and how we build all of this into our business plan. Now in its 20th year, believe it or not, in MFC, it really is the driving force behind how we do innovation and really brings together innovation and employee engagement in MFC. I'm sure when you saw the invite, you wondered, where does the human capital piece fit in? And really from an innovation perspective, through this platform, we've been able to integrate and reintegrate virtually the employee engagement piece within the process that we run. As I mentioned, the process would typically run over a few months with face-to-face local workshops across the country, much excitement generated from solving business problems, collaborating with colleagues, but also just seeing each other face-to-face and experiencing the culture physically. I think what COVID did was make all this excitement completely impossible and did it immediately, which resulted in a gap year of us not having a Siyakhula in 2020. So going from 2019, where we had an event that was face-to-face, had a winning idea, built it into the business plan, to a complete halt in 2020, where COVID made physically meeting impossible. And I think what it did, though, give is time for the organization to think through how do we continue with the critical part of our culture virtually? How do we continue with our flagship inclusive strategy build component in the absence of going to a venue, having facilitators, working through ideas? It's generally a 2-day event, and that has culminated over a period of months, which ultimately builds into our business plan. Through Azoku and the platform and the digitization of this process, we were able in 2021 to kick off the year with with more excitement, in the sense that we collected 175 ideas from people in 2021 versus 70 in 2019. So if you think about it, that more than doubled the ideas that we received. And I mean, you probably thinking to yourself, surely this is more work. And surely this then just meant a lot more hands on deck to work through all these ideas. And needless to say, with the click of a button, we were able to deliver a winning idea in a short space of time. From the 175 ideas, different teams were able to filter and get to our top 3, and our exco then decided on a final winning idea, which was then announced and published and built and will be built into our business plan. But I think over and above that, let's not forget the other 174 ideas. The 174 ideas have created a different kind of opportunity. There's challenges across the business for different functions that different functional heads are now sitting with and need to solve for. So beyond what is the winning idea and beyond what is being built into our plans, there's also 174 good ideas that need to be worked through by different functional leads and absolutely solve for. And I think that starts to talk to wanting and continuing an always on innovation culture and driving that throughout the year and not just once off in our flagship event. From a benefits perspective, I think the tool has certainly created a virtual collaboration and created, I think benefits have been realized from an overall cost perspective. Granted, we didn't pay for venues and all the other things that come with meeting face to face. From a time perspective, in previous years, running Siyakhula for 2 days, having a number of facilitators in rooms, working through ideas and trying to bring those ideas down and filtering down, sometimes meant a group of people worked overnight, while others enjoyed a bit of karaoke before continuing the next morning. However, the number of facilitators reduced, and the admin just in general around harnessing all these ideas. So not only do you get the benefit of the 175 ideas, you also reduce time and process in terms of how it all comes together. I think the biggest benefit for us as an organization, whilst a biggest benefit for us has been making sure we keep on track in terms of how we've done things and build our strategy and continue with the input from our people and our assets and driving sure that employee engagement. So this year, I think definitely a different take on Siyakhula, which was much welcomed, although 100% virtual. One thing we have decided from a next step perspective is how do we build a hybrid where you still have the opportunity to have that karaoke with your colleague in the evening whilst using the platform, and just trying to find a hybrid between face-to-face and virtual. So something very critical for us is how do we move forward, building in a tool like Wazoku to make sure that the innovation piece continues to be always on, whilst our employee engagement continues to run right through the year and as and when employees need it. So whilst I've spoken about a specific event, which is Siyakhula, which led and I think sparked the thinking and the way in which we think about innovation, I think is one, and we're working towards an innovation culture that is always on, always available throughout the year. As you have an idea, share it, and available to all. One thing about the MFC culture is that it's not hierarchical. So any idea at any time from anyone will be listened to, will be investigated, because you never know when your next source of revenue will come from. So really looking at how do we build that open, always on innovation culture. And I'll hand over to Lara just to share a little bit more around how we plan to do some of that and where we are. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Swazi. Hello, everyone, and thanks again to the Wazoku team for this opportunity. And yeah, it's a great pleasure, I think, that I share a little bit about how the innovation capability that Swazi has led us into is actually being developed at MFC. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it works, who's involved, because it really does take a crowd. Again, the role of Wazoku in terms of taking it forward and digitizing some of those processes for us, as well as improving collaboration. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the next steps that we have in mind for next year and beyond. But maybe before we get into the capability as such, a quick reflection on what innovation might mean or what the roots of that could be. And usually it starts with something that's annoying you or something that you want to change. You might be thinking about, why can't we sell this product or collect money in this way? I wish we could do that differently. So there's normally a need for some kind of creativity or improvement, or be able to compete differently as well as to grow. And perhaps considering that little organogram that Thembisa shared, where you've got us operating in 14 countries, MFC is one of a number of segments in a big corporate, and you wonder, is it really possible then to innovate in an organization of that size? And also, innovation has become a bit of a buzzword. I mean, no organization wants to be seen as not being innovative or not being creative. But as you can imagine, we've historically been set up to do something else. We've been set up to sell product X through channel Y to customer Z. And so this force of change, and that is change against customers, competitors, regulation, is forcing us to do something quite different, think differently and engage differently. And so MFC, like a number of the segments that Thembisa highlighted there, is looking to experiment with those new ideas, with those new products, those new markets, and also with new partnerships, because that is the way that we're going to stay relevant and be able to grow as well. So if we want to experiment with those new ideas, those ideas actually have to come from somewhere. And that is where this open innovation capability that Swazi highlighted comes in. And we're calling it open because when you read some of the papers, it's how do you get those ideas both from the inside and outside the organization. So Siyakhula that Swazi described is very much that internal source of ideation from staff. She's described how we log the ideas on that platform, the evaluation process that ran through all the way to prize giving. So it was a real win, I think, in terms of that tracking and transparency. But beyond that Siyakhula process, that runs for say March to July, we know that staff have those ideas at any time about the way that they're working, what they're working on. And those ideas don't then keep office hours. So what is it that comes to you as you're doing your day job? Our project management office, as an example, which is shifting to Agile, says that in a 12-week sprint, the last 2 weeks are actually dedicated to innovation. So where should those ideas then be logged? Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to listen to the people? And also the central product solutions team has approached us now to say they're also looking to ideate. Where do those ideas then go? So we really needed this capability where staff could log those ideas, discuss them, perhaps even come together to build on those ideas, see them through to implementation and hopefully commercialization in time. And hence enter the Innovation Lab, which is what we've then branded this innovation capability of ours. And I'll tell you why the name just now. And so then on Wazoku, you're able to log your ideas in response to calls. So Siyakhula is one of those, but we'll send out calls in general, maybe in functional areas as well, and then to highlight that or develop that always on capability that Swazi spoke about. So when you have an idea, you're welcome to log it. But the world's also changed, and we continue to live in that VUCA world that we've read about. So you cannot only be constrained by what is coming from the inside. You always have to take that outside-in perspective. So how do we then become open to ideas coming from external parties, fintechs, insurtechs, companies that have capabilities that we don't have, that we've built as a long-term insurer, but not that what other people are looking for in a digital space. So the aim here too is in time to be able to then develop the capability to be able to log those ideas on the platform and to have a central source of truth on innovation in MFC. So what are some of the activities then that are taking place in the Innovation Lab? So if you've got these internal and external sources of ideas, you need to be able to do something with them. How do you evaluate them? What criteria do we apply? Is it fitting with the MFC strategy? Does it serve a customer need? But also, if we're then conducting these experiments, what is the data that needs to come through that helps us to make those decisions? How do we convert these decisions from a yes, a no, a maybe, or maybe shift among those three things, depending on the results of the experiments that are taking place? And who should be making those decisions? Is it like a fixed panel? Or should we look for some kind of permanent panel, but also be able to bring in specialists because you don't know the type of idea that you're actually going to get? We're also thinking around what are the guardrails to be applied? How do we reward people? How do we recognize people? How do we also fund these ideas appropriately? And also importantly now, how do we create the time and space for people to take their ideas forward, either off their own steam or within an ecosystem that we're looking to create? And the thing is that at the moment, people have to innovate or participate alongside their day jobs. We do not have a permanent innovation team as such. So really then working agile, forming these multidisciplinary teams, and then trying to keep that fire of innovation going. And so those are some of the things that we're working towards in the Innovation Lab. It was officially launched in March this year. So we do have some ways to go. But perhaps just to highlight then in this next slide, the power of the crowd that we've been talking about. And that is both the internal crowd and members of an external crowd. And that's being used to form an innovation ecosystem. But also then to highlight why the Innovation Lab kind of concept. So on the right-hand side there, if you picture some kind of laboratory, it's got a series of lab benches. And there are a number of people that come together from different disciplines that work together on experiments. And the lab benches that we've listed there give you some idea of the experiments that we've got on the go at the moment. So some of them are looking at channels of the future. Some of them are on value proposition development. Siyakhula was certainly one of those lab benches. And then looking for proposition development, both for individuals as well as for groups. But what we found is that, it's obvious the skills to handle a particular problem don't necessarily reside in one person and also not necessarily in one team. We have to be able to bring together a variety of skills to come together to solve different problems. And that way we don't look for problems that only fit a particular skill set. And that's what this slide tries to convey. There's a real ecosystem of players that you can see on the left-hand side. They're both internal and external, bringing together a range of skills, digital, artificial intelligence, customer insights, and then coming together in this lab to be able to bring ideas to fruition, hopefully to commercialization as well. So I just want to call out a couple of parts of that ecosystem. So the MFC customer base in some ways overlaps with our corporate business customer base. and also to some extent with our personal finance customer base from an income perspective and potentially some needs as well. So you can think that the innovation ideas that come through from those segments are also important to us. So personal finance has an innovation capability called InnoVoice, and corporate is running the Mavericks program. And both of those are also running on the Wazoku platform. So we're certainly learning from each other there. And then with the MVP development taking place across the business, you then have to be able to call on the digital and data skills that reside at group. There's strategy, incubation. There's also artificial intelligence as well. And particularly if you're going to start moving into corporate venturing and how do you capitalize on the skills inside and outside. We're also partnering with venture builders, so the likes of the Delta that you can see on the right-hand side there. And that helps us to flex our capacity and our capability and draw on that wider set of skills to do experiments and potentially business development as well. And then lastly, just to call out a fairly new development within the Old Mutual Group is the creation of a new division called New Growth and Innovation, or NGI. So that's being run under Vuyo Mpako and reports directly into our CEO, Ian Williamson. And that capability has also absorbed our strategic partnerships team. So really exciting times for us. And maybe then just to end off is to highlight what is next for our capability. So you've heard that we've launched the lab, we've run Siyakhula quite successfully. We're looking to run some functional challenges for the project management office and potentially human capital in Q4, and as well as carry on running those experiments with the Delta. But our 2022 list can probably be summarized in these 4 bullets. So we can't overemphasize what we need to communicate, but to communicate to what end. And for us, it is to generate interest, and it's really to increase the Wazoku platform signups. It's to create energy around the Innovation Lab and get that digital adoption going, to get that innovation community and collaboration rates up as well, and to make the Innovation Lab a place where people want to come and see and also to be seen. We also want to enhance MFC's innovation culture. We have something really great in Siyakhula. Swazi has described that, but now we're thinking about how do we do that better? She's mentioned that hybrid experience, so we're giving some thought to that as well, because that might be the way that we operate into the future. We're also looking at innovation champions or innovation ambassadors to be able to run those multiple functional challenges, create some kind of hall of fame, set up the right rewards and recognition, and make it really worthwhile for people to log ideas and engage and participate, and be really cognizant of what it means to participate in the future of MFC. Just talking a little more about that always on innovation lab, it's going to mean us setting up the right processes. How do we also customize the Wazoku platform appropriately? And also to add the right capacity so that we can handle those ideas that are now going to be hopefully flooding through to us. And we also want innovation with a high purpose. So MFC's purpose is to champion mutually positive futures every day by bridging the gap between our customers' resources and financial needs. And so we want to build a capability that is really something that we value. And if you ask people, well, what do you value? You can easily see that from their calendars. So where do they spend their time? And also from their bank statements. So where do they spend their money? So we need to increase the time that we dedicate to innovation. That's mostly through having more people engaged on the Wazoku platform, more people engaged in the Innovation Lab with the right kind of funding, and really innovating then to meet the needs of our customers, our shareholders, and our employees. So thanks very much. Feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or on the email addresses that we've got at the bottom there. I'm going to stop there, and then we're happy to take any questions through Shani. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lara, Thembisa, and Swazi. Super interesting presentation. I feel I learned a lot, although I've been part of the program now for more than a year. We got a number of good questions here from the crowd, and I'm just going to run through some of those questions. And then one of them is from Neil. You've been running this program now for 20 years. Happy 20th. What are your biggest learnings over these 20 years? I know we have a number of people here that are running innovation programs. Some of them are just starting off. What are the best learnings or biggest learnings?
I could start off, but I also want to give Thembisa an opportunity, who's been with the cluster probably much longer than myself. I think for me, the biggest lessons or learnings with running Siyakhula, the digitization, what's happened in the past, call it almost 2 years, has been just being ready and being open to trying something different. So we have quite an embedded culture and a way of doing things. And I think what COVID did, although we were thinking about digitization, was force us and push us forward. And really force us to think through how do we change the way that we do things, because actually we have to adapt and the world is moving on. I think we were definitely thinking about it and planning for it, considering options, how it could potentially be done. But COVID said, well, face-to-face is not an option, and this is your framework that you operate within, and that's it. And you are then forced to still maintain the magic of the culture, the collaboration that sits around it, solve the problems, create ideas, but it's all being done virtually. And I think for me, the biggest lessons is just the openness to doing things differently. One, I think secondly, is around making sure that our people remain engaged in the process, although virtual. We're sitting across the country trying to achieve something that would have been done in 2 days in 1 day online. And I think just being open, I think COVID, yes, drove a big part of it, but I think that one of the biggest and hardest lessons was kind of putting it all together and being put in that position. But I think we came through it and really landed an amazing, call it initiative, which was 100% virtual, and really quite a number of lessons around. There also is a need for face-to-face. We did learn that, and hence the decision to go with the hybrid model is that whilst virtual was great and we achieved as much as we could and we digitized all the mundane admin things, there's something in a culture about meeting people and seeing eyeballing each other and giving each other a hug that talks to the culture of that team, and just makes Siyakhula what it is. Thembisa, any thoughts from you?
Yes, I think you've covered everything almost, Swazi. But the one thing that I would say, I mean, if we look back at the non-digitized Siyakhula, and I think there was a comment on the questions that we seem to be more ideas driven rather than problems driven. And I think maybe something that did not come through is that actually the beginning of the process is us sending out problems to the business. It is not only about ideas, it's ideas that are responding to challenges, either market challenges or business challenges. And the one big lesson really with the Siyakhula is that it actually not only has enabled us to get ideas to solving business problems, but it has engaged the people within and we always get high engagement scores in the business. And I think Siyakhula has actually contributed to that. People do want to be heard. And sometimes you need to be patient because you're not going to get your Horizon 3 type ideas. But in between those loads of ideas that may seem like your Horizon 1 or your Horizon 2, there are some nuggets of the things that are either incremental or things that are actually radical changes. So one needs to create an opportunity, and that's another lesson. You do need to create space for people to think, especially in the midst of day-to-day work.
I'll just add one point onto that, please, Shani. Just tagging on to what Thembisa said, where people want to be involved and want to be engaged. I think also just from a strategy formulation perspective, one of the biggest mistakes organizations can make is where the strategy is only top down. How is it dictated? Whereas this gives us an opportunity to do quite a nice mix. So there's a bit of top down, but certainly a bit of bottom up. And it certainly makes the strategy cascade easier and people buy in much easier in terms of what they need to execute on for growth. Thanks.
Thank you. And Thembisa, I think I think you responded to one of the questions from Robert Baldock about that the process seems to be idea driven, but you mentioned here that actually it is focused on challenges. Can you perhaps elaborate a little bit on that? How do you capture those challenges, or how that process works?
Maybe I can start and then Thembisa and Swazi can add. So we have a long-term strategy in the business, but there are certain parts of it that probably need better focus in a particular year. So, via a variety of ExCo engagements, we also have quarterly strategic reviews. We engage with senior leaders in the business as well. So over a period of time, you kind of like get a sense of what are pain points for strategy delivery, or what are the new sources of growth that we should be looking for. So based on those, a team will get together and have a look at what could be potential themes or questions or challenges that we need to put out there for a particular year. And then we come together as an ExCo. Does that make sense? Is that a pain point? Is that going to help us towards the business planning process as well? Because Siyakhula is certainly part of that. It fits into, between quarterly strategic review number 2 and business planning as well. Because the idea really is, if something wonderful, innovative, a real growth node comes up, how do you get it into the business planning cycle? How do you make sure that that is funded? So yeah, those challenges are certainly from business challenges, strategic challenges, what is going to really help MFC move forward.
Thanks, Lara. Yeah. Thembisa, when we met 2 years ago, we discussed the Siyakhula program and how it was running. And you highlighted some of those challenges, both today, but also to me 2 years ago when we met in Johannesburg. So now reflecting on this year's Siyakhula, right? How, and this is to Robert's question about the life before and after Wasoku, what are the quantitative and non-quantitative benefits of digitizing the entire process? I sent that one out to Thembisa, but anyone can respond.
Yeah, so I think, Swazi has mentioned some of but one of the biggest challenges with Siyakhula before Wasoku was the manual nature of Siyakhula. We had to have like a wall full of paper trying to synthesize ideas and really making sense of what should be prioritized and coming up with manual processes of prioritizing those ideas without leaving anything behind. And you can imagine that process starts at a local level up to a national consolidation. So throughout those stages, it used to be a manual process enabled by some kind of an Excel spreadsheet type thing. So it was labor intensive, time consuming, and as such, the transparency in terms of feedback loops was also a problem, because people need to know what happened to their ideas. Have they been dumped? Have they been progressed? And if they have progressed, at what stage are they being progressed? When has it been launched? What Wasoku now has enabled us to do, it is a one-stop shop where you are able to actually archive all the ideas, those that have come, progressed, and those that have actually not been progressed, and give reasons of why they haven't been progressed. Many a times we discovered that some of the ideas have been given in previous years, because you can imagine some people are new to the business and therefore have not been exposed. So Wazoko has really given us that transparency in terms of what is happening, so that at a click of a button, you can actually see what has happened over the years. Where is your idea? How many likes did you get from your idea or these ideas? So it has enabled and really enhanced the engagement and made it kind of real time. And that was something that we were challenged with before there was. And I guess as Lara is saying, and I think Swazi alluded to, innovation has got to be an ongoing thing. It can't be an event of a Siyakhula. It's got to be day to day, a part of our DNA, living with us. And that's what the Innovation Lab then is taking the process forward for us through the use of the Wazoko platform.
Thanks, Thembisa. Yeah, I remember we spoke about transparency and how we could try to minimize the duplication of effort, right? You mentioned that the same ideas tend to resurface year after year. So hopefully that has been reduced this year on the platform. There's one question here as well from Henra about the culture. So what impact does this have on the culture of innovation at Old Mutual or within MFC?
From a cultural perspective, I think what this has provided is an outlet for ideas that people already have and probably didn't know where to take them, right? So what you have is, I have to wait for my annual process because I figured out how to solve this problem, or this is how I want this is how I see opportunity in the value chain. What this does from a culture perspective is create that open communication, consistent communication throughout, which is what we say we want our culture to be. So I think from a culture perspective, what it does is kind of is create a space for people to formally go and log their ideas, to go and put them somewhere where you know something will be done about it. It will be investigated, whether it sees it's something that can or can't be done. I think having it investigated, having a place and an outlet for you to share your ideas throughout the year from a culture perspective does create that level of openness. It creates that transparency. So now if anybody asks me that I had this idea and I posted it and it was idea 134, in the past, it meant that that post-it has gotten squashed and it's gone. Nobody knows what happened to it and it's gone and that's it. But now I'm able to go back and say, listen, idea 134 went on to Lara's team and this is what they've done about it. Or actually, we can't solve it. Just that transparency, I think, has a major shift on the culture, knowing that it's being taken seriously. We are being transparent. I am able to track it. It is open. And actually, no idea is stupid because actually there's no criteria for you to put your idea. If you have an idea, put it down and you will receive feedback. And I think it creates a feedback culture as well. You're able to receive feedback. The tool does allow you to give people individualized feedback. That way, as an employee, you also know I'm being heard. And I think those are all critical components of driving the right culture in organizations.
Fantastic. Good answer. And yeah, and I think, it takes time to build a culture of innovation. We know that you've been running this program for 20 years. And I saw a comment in the chat here that you really thought this through, but it has been refined over 20 years. So we're super proud to be part of this program. One question that I have is, how do you reward and recognize those people who participate in the program? And how do you encourage people to participate? Are you out there in the field speaking to people? Is there a financial reward, or what's in it for people?
I think around Siyakhula time, I become Mother Christmas. There is reward and there is recognition. I think how it has been built is that it is quite a prestigious thing to be a part of, and maybe we're not doing justice to it. Just being part of Siyakhula and how we've positioned it is being part of the final national consolidation is prestigious, because you do go and represent your specific region. If you think about it, we have about 9,500 employees across the cluster. You're going to be chosen to represent your province and bring across that idea. So that in itself is seen as prestigious. And I think we play on that and elevate that, and how we treat people when they're there. They do get the golden treatment, and you do feel like you're part of something that's really great and contributing and meaningful to what we're trying to build. I think second to that, there are, of course, prizes that we have built in throughout the different phases. Your top 10 ideas, your top 3 ideas, your most innovative idea, and that will happen throughout the process. So making sure you have the right level of reward and recognition, whether it's through comms, whether it's through comms that go out, or physical prizes that people would receive. And they range from anything to vouchers to cash, and what would work for whatever it is we're doing. We are toying around with the idea of a large sum at the end. And I think what we're trying to do is, from an innovation capability, what we don't want it to become is you win a once-off. So win R500,000 Rand for your idea. I think what's challenging for us, because it's such a collaborative process, it's very difficult. It becomes difficult to identify the winner. So I think what we try to do is reward as many people throughout the process, recognize as many people throughout the process that have participated. And I mean, we're continuing to build around what that final prize will look like in future, with the idea that we wanted always on innovation culture in the organization. So it's trying to toggle between an event that happens at a point in time, but also maintaining the right culture and capability that we're building throughout the year. But there's definitely reward, recognition, lots of fun had at those events, and people walk away feeling really special and spoiled.
I feel like I want to participate now to get some of those prizes. And I also like the idea of having a Hall of Fame. I guess that helps people stand out, and there's some kind of pride in being on that wall. So that's a great idea. So one question that just came through here: who's the best karaoke singer? That's from Robert.
I heard Thembisa. I've heard Thembisa.
I bet Thembisa would be a good one.
She is.
And I mean, I just wanted to say that we cannot overemphasize the fact that people were not driven by money. It was not a monetary thing at all. People were driven by the sense of belonging, and the fact that some people have not even met some of the executives face to face, and being able to come to a national consolidation to be part of the movement and meet some of the senior leadership of the business was just an incentive enough. And for me, I really was looking for the karaoke night, because to be able to sing was an incentive for me.
So one question here from Mariana. I think, Lara, you spoke a little bit about this, but perhaps you can elaborate. But I get this question a lot as well, right? Throughout my 6 years at Wasoku, is great, we can go out there and capture ideas. But the problem is really, what are we going to do with those ideas? And how do we ensure we have the right resources to do something with the ideas, right? So how do you ensure you have the necessary resources to do something with the ideas that you capture from Siyakhula?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and also a little bit of a pain point that we're working through as well, because like Swazi mentioned, I mean, you've got 175 ideas. Potentially just one of those, went through to the uppermost level. What do you do with the rest? And what we also found is that those ideas were also a mix of where people were maybe innovating or wanting to think differently about existing products, processes, systems. And like Swazi mentioned, we then had to farm those out to the particular functional areas, because there's something here that potentially you already have on your to-do list. And now there's some real energy behind that. You need to do that a lot faster. So there's a little bit of a mix there where some things are in the business, we've identified those, how do we get functional areas to sort those out? But they might need funding as well, so they could come back to us in time. The other one is around ideas also outside of the Siyakhula process, because if we're starting to do always on, and you want to encourage people to innovate, ideate at any time, then you don't want that to go into a big black hole, because people are taking the time to log their ideas. So somebody needs to have the capacity to go and look, is this then going to be something worthwhile taking forward? And that is the part where at the moment we're trying to do that internally, and we haven't opened the challenges up yet. We're looking to do that in Q4. But where we're partnering, for example, with the Delta, then what is their capacity to also help us to go in, to communicate, to reach out to people via email, to talk about those ideas differently. Because we're very aware the second that you put an idea on there, nobody's responding, you're unlikely to get back onto the platform. So it is about getting the right people who are also energetic and being able to recognize something, quite quickly, that is this something worthwhile or not. If it's not worthwhile, how do you respond appropriately so that you also get people coming back? But if it is, to get the right team together to quickly decide how you're going to take it forward. So yes, it is a capacity issue, it's a skills issue, it's an energy issue, and something that we're working on now.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think providing feedback is crucial, as you say, right? Otherwise, people won't come back. And there's one comment here from Robert as well. It's not those with the best ideas that succeed; it's those that implement them. So just a comment there from Rob. So we talked a lot about MFC. You also mentioned personal finance and corporate, who have similar programs. And I know from our conversations that there is now a committee that goes across Old Mutual, and something is established at a global level. You talked about it a little bit, Lara, but what do you think the future is going to look like? Do you think we're going to see challenges that will go across all of Old Mutual that involves 35,000 employees? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities that you see with that?
Yes, that would be great. I think we've also had an attempt at that. We had a program called Innovate. And at that time, I think we were just using the Teams platform. I think also where we've reached out and had certain challenges, for example, Customer Experience Week or something like that, people really respond because we have one Old Mutual customer. So let me maybe just talk about the South African business as an example. Even if we got challenges, just cutting across that part of the business would be awesome. Because if we see customers as an Old Mutual customer, what is the experience that we want to deliver there, then we definitely should be getting ideas from across the business. We also drive in the cluster in particular, an integrated financial service strategy, which talks about holistic propositions and omni-channel. So you do want to get cross-functions, cross-channels, cross-product solutions, all thinking together for the right kind of experience for our customers as well. I think that there might still be a space for, maybe segment-specific innovation, because we hold some of the customer insights quite close to us. So what is that customer intimacy that we have that then allows us to ideate for particular customer personas? So I think that there'll be a mix. There'll be certain things that we can absolutely do at a macro level. And those could be, like I typed in the chat, Horizon 3 stuff as well. What is the next growth node for Old Mutual? What is the next growth node for a segment? Versus what is H1, H2, so something incremental, something adjacent. And there'll certainly be a mix of that depending on group strategy and I guess segment strategies as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's going to be...
And just to add, Shoning, the fact that we have Wazoku across the business is a good start. And that also was not by accident. We have an innovation council, which has got membership across the businesses within the South African business. And in that council, the discussions are group-wide as well as segment-wide. And that is the forum that enables that group-wide innovation. And some of the things speak to across to the business as a whole rather than to specific business units. So there is space, as Lara says, for both.
Yeah, and that's going to be super exciting. I think the next steps in this program. I can see that we have 5 minutes left, and so time is running out. I'm not sure if anyone has any final questions to the team. Please feel free to put that in the chat. But I'm just going to start wrapping up, I think. Just to let you all know that this has been recorded today, and the recording will be made available to all the participants and those who signed up. Also, I just want to leverage this opportunity to invite you all to our upcoming webinar. It's going to be a really good one. It's about how to lead change, and this is with Michael Tushman, professor at Harvard University, Andy Binns, who's the MD and founder of Change Logic, and our CEO, Simon Hill. And this is going to be on the 8th of October, 2 p.m. GMT. Then on the 14th of October, we're going to have a webinar with A2A, an Italian client of ours. And they're going to talk about how solving one problem helped them drive a $2 billion USD business opportunity. Yeah. So please feel free to sign up. I think the link is now in the chat somewhere. Yeah. And then I think I'm going to thank everyone, except if, the link is there in the chat. So I'm going to thank the panel here today, Swazi, Thembisa, and Lara for joining. It's a pleasure working with you, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, and thanks for having us.